Check, check. Awesome. Welcome to Market Psychology 101, where we look for value in the markets when there's fear and cautious when there's greed. Merry Christmas. Happy Christmas Day special. Let's do a little bit of a live stream today. I don't know if anyone's going to show up for this one, but I had some time, so I figure, hey, why not? And if any of you come along to the live stream, that'd be great. But I'm just going to externally process with all of you as we run through different macro charts and indicators and just take a look at Bitcoin through as many different lenses as we can. So if you are here or watching in replay, first of all, Merry Christmas. Very grateful, thankful for all of you subscribers, people who leave nice comments and like the videos. So appreciate you guys. Anyways, let's start off with Bitcoin. And there's been a couple indicators I've been looking at as far as Bitcoin deep valuation. And these two indicators that we see up here, this one, the Bitcoin best value corridor, as well as Bitcoin production cost oscillator. And the reason I've been looking at these is because if Bitcoin continues this bear market, where could we expect some very good discounted prices? Now, for what it's worth, Bitcoin right now, it's at its 100-week moving average. We've talked about this before. But as far as these different oscillators go, you can see that the value can go a little bit deeper. My cat says hi, by the way. And just taking a look at historically, you can see how this log regression band of deep value, this is what Bitcoin has hit in the past, whether around the middle for deep value, this was the COVID bottom right there. And we got pretty close to that in this current cycle when it started at that bottom. So if we only hit that middle range, that'd be right around 70K. The reason 70K is interesting because that is the former area where Bitcoin made its all-time high back in 2021. And in March of 24, Bitcoin also ran into that area of resistance. Remember what we say about candle bodies versus wicks? We need bodies above those areas for support or to get underneath it in order to make it resistance. But if it's just wicks, it doesn't really count as much. And so that 70K level keeps popping up. If Bitcoin gets any sort of a relief rally and then continues downward, I could see 70K being a very good value area for a bottom. Now, as far as this indicator is concerned, this one being the production costs oscillator, you can see we have not crossed in the green territory yet. Now, just for a little bit of historical sake, even in the prior cycles, let's go from 2013 to 2017. You can see how during that bear market, when it's down here, it was green. There we go. It was green and it got pretty deep there. Had a little bit of a pump before the halving and then turned green again and then turned red as we became overbought for Bitcoin back there in 2017. Again, similarly, there was that cycle low. We had that mid-cycle top, and then, of course, bottomed out into COVID. It was even green down here as far as deep value, even as Bitcoin was continuing to go up. And then, of course, Bitcoin, this is almost like our bubble risk indicator, by the way. It became very overbought here. And as you can see, any of these current high prices really haven't even eclipsed the 2024 top, the 2024 top being right around the halving. So there's been something I've been thinking about a lot. I've been talking about it in the videos recently. And we have this discrepancy, this disconnect between the 4-year cycle Bitcoin people as well as the money flow people, the monetary policy. And I think there is a world where everyone can be correct and we get our alt season, but it's not going to be when you think. And what I've been coming away with as far as the data, reconciling the monetary policy with the 4-year cycle, something that I think is not talked about enough is that Bitcoin does not need to have its alt season in the 4-year cycle. Now, we had that line up here in 2017. Actually, let's go over to the Bitcoin chart. Let's get rid of a couple of these indicators, shall we? We're going to put on the Bitcoin dominance in the background. Let's do that here in a moment. And so Bitcoin dominance, we'll stay on the monthly right now because I think the monthly shows things very clearly. And so when we maybe go weekly, monthly is a little too chunky. But in 2017, we had that nice 4-year cycle top, and this is when we had alt season. From that top, we had that rotation into alts. Everyone was happy. Crypto was a wonderful place. And then as we got to 2021, the 4-year cycle top was not alt season. Now, there were alts that pumped during that time, but the 4-year cycle came earlier. And a lot of us just chalked it up to, well, the Fed was going to massive quantitative easing. They were money printing and the trillions. And so that's why we had that top early. And all that's true. However, we did get the alt season earlier, and there's a lot of charts to show that this is when Bitcoin was truly having its bubble top. You can go to the bubble risk indicator. You can see it was higher there. We can go to the pi cycle indicator. That would be right here. Okay, you see how the pi cycle is triggering there. But in any case, we see these various different indicators showing, even the one before, which one was it? The production cost oscillator. I believe it was this one as well. Maybe we have to go to the monthly. Yeah, let's do that. This is on the monthly. You can see how the production cost was peaking during that time as well. But in any case, what we see is that alt season did not have to line up with the 4-year cycle. And I think even though many of us have chalked that up for the last 4 or 5 years saying, you know what, this was an anomaly, it was because QE, blah, blah, blah. We are now faced with that discrepancy of monetary policy versus 4-year cycle. And as far as the money flow for Bitcoin, we are stuck right here. We are in phase 2 Ethereum year. And the case I'm going to make in this video is that everyone can be right. The 4-year cycle people can be right. And the alt season people, the monetary policy people can be right as well. We may very well get an alt season before the next 4-year cycle top. Now, the next 4-year cycle top would be, I don't know, September of 2029, something like that. I do not believe that's when the next alt season is going to take place. In fact, just by showing you on this chart, you can see this green band. This is the 2017 top, and this magenta band. Here we go. Let's remove all these. The magenta band, the alt season was right here. And it was more left translated, again, because of QE. That's fine. But I believe this time around, we are going to get, I don't know why it stretched it all the way, that if we are to get alt season, it would be further along. Now, could both parties be correct? The 4-year cycle people and the monetary policy people? I do think so. And I'm going to present that to you right now. Now, the 4-year cycle people, they'll say, you know what, you take a look from the lows to the lows, and we got a top from the same distance from the lows, which isn't completely true when you track the actual data, but just I'll work with you guys here. They say, you know what, these tops somewhat coincide. Expect another low, the 4-year cycle low, to be in October of 26. You know what, fine. However, this current cycle, I'll have you guys know that the last time Bitcoin was very overbought, and the last time we got those oscillators really spiking was right here going into the halving. And that's not unusual. Before the 2017 top, we had Bitcoin spiking into the halving. And in fact, in 2024 here, early 24, if any of you were around in crypto during that time, that's when a lot of people were getting, or not a lot of people, percentage wise, but high numbers of people were making money in the Solana casino off those meme coins, all that trash, and they slowly got bled out. But we never got the Bitcoin dominance rotation. We never got the true alt season. And I'm here to say monetary policy people and for your cyclists could both be correct, that in that, we could get that 2026 October bottom, but then a relief pump after that could lead into a top where we get that rotation and alt season. And again, I'm not here to make predictions as far as timing wise when that could be, but I do think there is sort of this happy medium where everyone could be correct. And to be honest, going back to the charts I was showing before for Bitcoin, as far as the let's see, I think it was the Bitcoin Hunter. This is one I like, as well as the production cost oscillator. Let's go to the monthly again. As far as these go, I do think even in the most bearish scenario, you can see this is a Bitcoin Hunter and how we hit those values at the absolute lows. And it doesn't always mark the very bottom, by the way. It can mark the mid-cycle bottom, not the very first one. And from these lows, even if Bitcoin became very bearish and eventually end of 2026 hit this level, I mean, by the time we got there, that might be in the 60 to 70K area. So I don't say this to freak anyone out, to say, you know what, we're bearish now. I do not know if we're going to get to those levels. When I take a look at Bitcoin, at any stock asset, what I'm looking for really is where to scale in. And that's one reason I use moving averages quite a bit. And I think even just measuring the percent of a drawdown is important too. So actually, let's go to a different asset here, just to drive this point home. So let's get rid of the Bitcoin Hunter. I'm going to share with you part of my strategy, part of what I do if I were investing into any stocks. Let's take the number one stock here, Microsoft. Let's go back in time a little bit, and I'll show you one of my favorite charts. Not that one, this one for reference. And the reason I tell you guys this is my favorite chart is because we see how rare these drawdowns are. And whenever we're getting this percent of a drawdown in the S&P 500, our stocks, especially our tech stocks or Bitcoin or speculative tech, is probably going to draw down even more. And so part of my strategy, again, it's not financial advice for you, is to scale in, to dollar cost average in, just as I would dollar cost average out. So Microsoft, when it's bullish, the 50-week moving average in a bull market, that is the ultimate buy the dip territory. But when we get underneath that and it's bearish, we have the 100, we have the 200. You can see 2022, we hit those levels perfectly. And if you were to just buy any of the buy signals, and this is a Heikin-Ashi indicator, if you were to just buy any of these weekly Heikin-Ashi buy signals down here, you'd be getting Microsoft between the values of roughly 225 to 270. And right now it's doubled. And that is very good value for the top stock in the world, historically speaking. And you can take a percentage, you can draw down there, you can say, you know what? Right here, Microsoft was down 25%. It was down 35%. I think you guys get where I'm going. Now, when this translates over to something like Bitcoin, I take a look at this in the very same way. From its peak, now Bitcoin, I don't hold it in the same regard as a Microsoft, but from its peak, I might be looking a little bit more aggressively at some of the downswings, because we can see bottom or top to bottom, sorry, we had an 84% drawdown 2017. Okay. Top to bottom in 2013, what was this one? An 87% drawdown. So a couple mid 80% drawdowns. Top to bottom in 2021, a 77% drawdown. And so conservatively speaking, we had 85%, 77%. I am looking for a max drawdown at worst. I'm not saying I'm predicting this, but I'm saying at worst, my scale and plan would factor in around that 70% level. Now, 70%, that gets pretty dang low. That gets to 36K. I don't believe Bitcoin's going to get there. We took a look at the production oscillators, the Bitcoin Value Hunter. Remember where that was at? It was at around 52K. Let's go to that really quick. Bitcoin. Oop, don't click the. Dang it, I clicked the wrong one. Let's go to that quick. So we're going to put on the Bitcoin. I need to turn off one of these. We're going to put on the Bitcoin Hunter and even maybe Bitcoin production costs as well. We're going to turn off our moving averages because this argument, by the way, can work with moving averages too. I will get to that as well. Let's go to production costs. I believe this has to be on the monthly. Yep, there we go. Let's see. Sergio the Tower stopping in really quick to say happy holidays. Happy holidays to you too, Sergio. Appreciate the nice comment. So again, you guys are going to have to imagine the moving averages there. I'll put them back on. But remember what I just said for Microsoft. That's a stock where, 20% on down, I'm buying the next buy signals and I'm more than happy to scale in. And everyone has a different scale in plan. They might say, you know what? If I have, let's say, X amount of dollars ready, $10,000, I might deploy 25% when it's 25% down. I might deploy 50% when it's 50% down. And then I'll deploy whatever I have left, the last 25, if I feel like it's bottoming even more. But anyways, if we go down here, we can see Bitcoin at this Hunter value at around 60%, and the lower area of this production value area is 64%. Now, remember what I shared with you before, that these drawdowns, top to bottom, were about 85%, 84%, 77%. Is it believable that in current market conditions, with Bitcoin being bought up by Wall Street, institutions, the institutionalization of crypto, is it more believable that Bitcoin would not have as heavy of a downswing? I think it is. And one of the reasons why we can see this mathematically is in our trusty logarithmic regression chart, the Bitcoin rainbow chart, where we have a x-axis of time and a y-axis of our log scale, factor of 10. And this shows us diminished returns, not just bottom to top, but also from our drawdowns as well. Our drawdowns become less violent, and within a log regression, it's going to be stretched out over the x-axis more. That's, again, by the way, why I believe that this cycle, it's more likely to see an alt season not line up with the 4-year cycle like 2017, where it did line up. 2021, it did not line up. But I think alt season, should we get it, would be further along this way. Going back over to Bitcoin, though, should all the parties be happy, the monetary policy people, the 4-year cycle people, let's say this bear market continues, is it believable that Bitcoin might go down somewhere to these levels, about 60%? What was that other number there to the Bitcoin Hunter value there? Yeah, 60%. We're just going to work with that. Okay. And by the way, going back, you can see that these ranges is where Bitcoin bottoms on these two indicators. So what we're going to do here is we are going to put our moving averages back on. You can see, by the way, this is between the 50 and the 100 month. Remember, that's 60% we talked about before. I like looking at the weekly, so we're going to go over to the weekly time frame. So again, 60% max. So part of the way I'm looking at this, should this be a bear market, and 60%, by the way, would be right down here at around 50K. That's a nice round number, 50K. So let's play with that. My scale and strategy might be to say, you know what, if it's 60% max, maybe I'll take a look at 20, 40, 60 when Bitcoin's down. All right. Now, right now, it hit the 100 week moving average, and that's 30%. And I kind of like this more. Actually, let's change it. Let's go 30, 45, 60% drawdown. So I might scale in 25% here at a 30% drawdown where we're at right now for a dollar cost average. 50%, you see that's right at the former all-time high, this 200-week moving average. I might scale in 50% of my total capital there. And if it goes lower, I have another 25% left to deploy. But let's say it doesn't go lower. Well, then what? Well, then my last 25%, I can just buy whenever we get confirmation. And I've shown you guys confirmation in the form of buy signals. So what I'm trying to sort of verbalize with y'all is, even though this is a bear market, these are the opportunities to buy low and sell high. Everyone loves to say it, but few people love to do it because few people love to be here in the bad times. And so I'm not obsessed with finding the exact bottom. I don't know where the exact bottom is, whether it's here or here. None of us know. A lot more people on Twitter or X now and YouTube are saying, you know what, it has to come down to 70K. And we have to do the same move here. A lot of people are saying that in Twitter and YouTube. They're like, you know what, this is 2021 again. We hit the 100. We're going to come up, get rejected by the 50, and then we're going to tank. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to hit the 100, have a relief rally, a head and shoulders. Everyone knows the future, and then we're going to tank down here. That's what a lot of people are saying. And what do we know about crypto when a lot of people are saying the same thing? Usually doesn't tend to happen that way. So, it's possible this is the bottom. In a bullish case, this could be the bottom and we could blast off higher. I don't know. Or, maybe all those people are right, the four-year cyclists, and we bottom nice and neat on the, was at the 200-week moving average in later 2026. Now, could that happen? Are there things setting up for that to happen? Maybe. Right here is the S&P 500 index average return since 31. We are going into 1931, by the way. We're going into a midterm year, and this is the average midterm year return. Now, what does this show? That we could see seasonality-wise a relief rally sometime into late April, early May. Things tend to be bullish around that time. That would not surprise me in the slightest. But then, as far as our almanac perspective is concerned, you see where this bottoms? October. Now, this is just an average of historical data. We don't have to follow this. But again, what would the four-year cycle from low to low show us as far as where the next low might be? This would be in October of 2026. So again, I'm not saying this has to happen. It would be ironic, coincidental if it does, and it's just a scenario to look out for. That as far as what next year has in store for us, this is what the average midterm year shows. Now, is this going to happen? Is there any counter argument to that? One of the counter arguments I've been bringing up a lot is that we are in a secular bull run. And as far as the stock market compared to the crypto market, things are still very bubbly right now, and it can get more bubbly. You can see the Shiller P ratio for all stocks. We are in territory not seen since the dot-com bubble. And I believe AI is going to be an even bigger bubble than the dot-com bubble. And when the Shiller P hit 40 back in 1999, there was still another 400 days ago, another 25% up for the market. So things can still get hot, and we can still have a lot of chop. Even when we had that top in the S&P back in 1999, there was a lot of chops, downswings, 10% down, 20% up. It got crazy volatile. So as far as next year, again, I'm not trying to make any predictions, but I would not be surprised to see, us being so bubbly right now that we could get 10% downswings and then, 15, 20% rallies. And we are very likely to see a section of the year where we get a decent drawdown in the market. Now, I think preparing for this mentally, what are people going to be saying? It's over. We're going into a crash, next recession. We're going to get a 40% pullback, 50% pullback. Maybe. I don't know if those people are right or wrong. Again, have a scale in strategy if you want to reduce the stress about it all, like I try to do. Again, I think that helps, by the way. Short aside, like trying to be a good market psychologist, looking for value when there's fear. Fear by itself is not the only indicator. We got to go by the numbers as well and take what the market gives us. And should the market give us a giant crash like all these doom and gloomers are saying, great. I will be ready to deploy a percent of capital at those areas. Okay, so you have to be ready to buy when those times come along. You have to be there in order to take advantage of it. So if that happens, fine. But if it's just 15%, 20%, you know what? I'm ready for that too. And I'm not scared of that either. I'm fine buying the dip or if it were to crash further. Now, as far as Bitcoin goes, going back to that, we'll see. We'll see what happens. As far as any sort of relief rally, if we're going to get that soon or not, let's go to some different indicators. Love taking a look at Bitcoin through different indicators with all of you. We talked about recently the MACD a lot. We talked about the RSI a lot. Let's add those on. These are two of the major indicators that we've been recently looking at. And something that I think, is sort of catching my eye more and more here is when we've seen the MACD start to curl up and we see this giant gap in the RSI start to close, these can be good opportunities for a relief rally. We saw it back here in April of 25. We even saw it kind of more back here in September of 24. So should this gap continue to close, we got to see what happens when Bitcoin, the RSI on the weekly, when we run into this moving average line. Alternatively, for the MACD, we have to see what happens as this thing starts to get ready to flip green. Is it going to flip green and we get a big bull run? Maybe. But yeah, that's kind of the levels we have to see. And by the way, if you're wondering where would Bitcoin have to be for the MACD to flip green, this is our Hull Swing indicator right above our nice gold box. Again, we have to get out of this head and shoulder zone right here. And the bull market support band, this 1618 fib, as far as the MACD flipping positive, all this up here around 102 to 108K. I think that's, if we're going to get a relief rally, that's where we are going to see whether or not we are in another situation like here, where Bitcoin in 2021 did run into those 50-week moving average, the bull market support band, all that stuff, and continues to fall, or if Bitcoin maybe does something different and flips up. And by the way, even in the MACD, similarly speaking, you see this lower high in the MACD, and then by the time it's getting ready to flip up, what happened? Didn't really get a nice cross above it. You can see indecision with the dojis and just getting rejected. We're set up in a similar way. We have the lower high. We're going to eventually cross up somewhere in negative territory. And then it's decision time whether or not Bitcoin can get above all those levels or continue to crash down somewhere, again, to the 70K area. So that's sort of what I'm mentally preparing for. In the bear scenario, let me draw that out. In a bear scenario, I'm looking for something like this. And I am ready to deploy heavily in this area. I think right now is the area to start deploying. Should we get some more confirmation, a buy signal? And I think long term, not the worst area to look at getting in. Let's turn on our moving averages again. If you just take a look at the 100-week moving average, when Bitcoin is at or underneath, okay, you take a look at the 100-week moving average here. Even in this relief rally, Bitcoin was 35K. You would have, or even 40K. You would have a 2X. Yeah, it took a while, and you're not buying the absolute best area. But even in the worst case scenario, in a longer term horizon, even before Bitcoin fell off a cliff here, Bitcoin at 5K, 6K, when we got the next buy signal, 3.5K, 6K, This is when we hit the 100-week moving average in 2019, 7K. So Bitcoin can still do well in the long run. But again, I like to look for more confirmation. So I'm not just buying something before it turns into a falling knife. But anyways, that's my bear scenario. Bull scenario, if people were to be surprised, I think we would possibly break up and through, maybe test somewhere down again, and then go further up. And either one is possible. As far as which one's probable, who knows? I think, just historically speaking, as far as Bitcoin goes, we would think, we would guess that this one is more probable based off what Bitcoin's done in the past. But remember, Wall Street is controlling Bitcoin more so this time around. We see that in the liquidation heat maps. The price targets those longs and those shorts, and you see Bitcoin react to that quite a bit. And so with Bitcoin being more controlled by Wall Street, I asked myself, how deep of a value could it really go to if large money whales, Vanguard, BlackRock are going to be scooping this up? I would assume that they would scoop it up at a higher value than what many of the retail might be hoping for. I've heard retail people across Twitter and YouTube saying, you know what, Bitcoin's going down to 30K, whatever, 10K. And, they could be right, but I really don't think Wall Street is going to wait for those deeper levels. I think they'll snatch it up beforehand. Again, unless the only scenario would be unless the bubble pops and we unwind out of there. But I'm not going to plan for that possibility yet until we see more of that sort of structure go into the markets. All right, enough about Bitcoin. By the way, I'm just going to hop through different charts here. If you have any questions, comments, please feel free to put those below. And thank you all so much for being here. We talked about Bitcoin dominance before briefly. Curious to see how this one is looking as far as, let's go to the RSI. We use the MACD a bit. The RSI on the weekly is bullish. Let's go to the monthly. The monthly, make no mistake, this is bearish. And even with Bitcoin dominance, you see that 100 month moving average right there. Last cycle is the 50. Is this 100 month here at around 62% going to be an area where Bitcoin dominance might run into some resistance? You see it holding support at the 20-month moving average, could encounter some resistance right here. There's a little bit of a gap to that moving average. Now, I think the trend could still be down overall, even if Bitcoin dominance were to move up. You can see, likewise, in the past, when Bitcoin dominance got underneath that monthly moving average line, okay, it can come up, test it, but when the macro trend's down, that's what gets me excited and all tingly inside, is the fact that, again, we're right here. We're in Ethereum season, and I can prove that to you. You can see right here, even the RSI shows this as well as the MACD. We are above the RSI on the monthly scale. You can see how we bottomed out, and we have reversed trend. Now, again, inversely speaking, because Bitcoin is the shadow of Bitcoin dominance, this can come down a little bit. And, where would that be on the weekly? We'll see. No real moving averages down there, but maybe it would hit a level, as low as 0.15, 0.16, that 236 area. But if not, if this thing continues to curl up, really watch out. If Ethereum, Bitcoin, like if this, all of a sudden we get sort of a relief rally to 108K or 150K in that bull scenario I talked before about, when Ethereum, Bitcoin has broken the 0.25 and gone up, that's when we've had these alt seasons. And again, I'm going to keep going back to this. Alt season does not have to line up. Let's go to the right chart here. Alt season does not have to line up with the 4-year cycle. People are obsessed with that. The 4-year cycle and alt season lined up in 2017, yes. But in 2021, it didn't. It was here. It was left translated. We are just getting quantitative easing now. And so, again, I would not be shocked if alt season were maybe over here or over here. Do we have to wait a few years? I hope not. But if Bitcoin does something different, could it be sort of in the center of the cycle in April of 26? That's a possibility. Actually, going back over to Bitcoin, I mean, this is one of my most bullish case scenarios. If we measure the bottoms to tops here, this gets stretched each time. 750 days, 850 days. You can see that right here. This bottom to top, 1,050 days. Okay, so we added 100, we added 200. Again, what if we added 300 or 2 to 300? Okay, we just hit 1,050 days before, but what if we went somewhere between 1,250? That's in April. You see at the bottom, April 26. If we did 1,250, 1,350, that would be around July, August. So why not 1,300? Let's get that here. 1,300. Oh my God, this thing's so touchy. I'm using a Mac scrolly thing. Could we top by June? Is there anything to support that? Well, believe it or not, there is. We could get a relief rally early in the year. Again, this would go by the averages for the midterm years. Could we get a relief rally and that turn into alt season? We could, but again, what I'm looking for is the money flow. How money flow is different, and we do not have to follow the 4-year cycle for there to be an alt season. I don't think that can be understated enough. I don't hear anyone else talking about it, that alt season, again, it does not have to line up with the 4-year cycle. 4-year cycle, people, hey, if you're Bitcoin maxi, sure, the 4-year cycle is wonderful. It's great. If you're here, and I know a lot of you are because you ask questions about it, if you're here for altcoins and looking to multiply your money, again, the hardest thing to do is to pick the right altcoin. But if you're looking to gain some ground on a Bitcoin, you're asking, when is this alt season? And going over to Bitcoin dominance, you guys can see alt season, it does not last very long, and it takes longer each time. So again, this is on the RSI. When we showed on the monthly, we just flipped to the negative downside. We've talked about this before too, how the MACD has just crossed negative as well. I mean, that's on the monthly. This is on the weekly. We see how we can have these negative directions, the trends. I love looking at trends. Okay, I believe the negative trend has started, and even on the MACD, even though this is macro up, I mean, look at this. We just crossed into the negative trend territory. And I don't like using this as an argument, by the way. People use time as an argument. Like, what if we just compare it to last time? That kind of glitched out on us. Let's go from, where it crossed into red. This took about 273 days. And let's see, if we did something similar from where it crossed red, where would 273 days put us? June of 26. So that's another data point to say, could a relief rally and a similar length of move give us what we had last year? If so, if we're going to get a relief rally, 150K Bitcoin, Q1, Q2 of next year, then we're looking for a similar move as this, by May next year. That's when we would be sort of looking for it to happen. But again, I don't like that argument, because something's happened before does not mean the same length of time has to happen again. In any market, things act a little bit differently each time. But I am curious, with the U.S. central bank balance sheet, this is when we switched from quantitative tightening to quantitative easing. One of the reasons I would say not to expect the same movement is because I am not expecting the Fed to inject the same level of QE as they did last time. Do they need to? I mean, that's a question for you to answer yourself. I don't know. But I would expect this to be more drawn out. And something, by the way, something I think about a lot, guys, and if anyone has an example out there in the comments, please let me know. It's just something I think about is the shape of this chart. How often have we seen a chart like this? I cannot for the life of me think of another chart, but a way I would expect a chart like this to go would be maybe something like that. I don't know. As far as the weekly, it, from what I see, is this sort of rounding pattern. Like, I wonder, are we getting sort of um, a pattern like this? But again, how often do we see a chart where we just kind of round up to the top and then die? I cannot think of one. If you can think of an asset, in the past, like a Microsoft and Amazon, have we seen something like that? I mean, I guess let's get rid of that. I guess you could make the argument that this was similar, that we had this rounded pattern, came up and then crashed. It kind of reminds me of sort of an inverse cup and handle. Speaking of, I mean, you can make the argument here's the rounded pattern, and then you go up here, but people would say, with the cup and handle formation. And I'm not much for the shapes like all these people are. Here's the cup, here's the handle, and then boom. Is it sort of like an inverse of that as far as what Bitcoin dominance is doing? It's just a question I find myself asking, like, where have we seen this before? And that's kind of the closest I can think of, but a little bit stumped there. Let's go to total three. Let's take a look at some of these charts. And again, let's look through the lens of the RSI because we take a look at the MACD quite a bit. So, and I'll try to switch up the different indicators each time. This is on the weekly. The weekly still sort of bottoming out, getting oversold. And again, we have not seen this level of oversold, really since those bottoms, except here in 2019. Again, that's when the Fed was switching from quantitative easing to tightening. So, are we to expect a move like this, COVID notwithstanding, where we just kind of chop down and then, slowly grind up? I mean, we'll see. I kind of want to take a look at the monthlies. The monthly, I see a lot of people make this argument and they're like, what, look at Bitcoin through this indicator lens on the monthly. And they're like, that looks horrible. And you're right. There's a lot of room to the downside. And 2019, you can see it didn't really cross that much lower for a chart like total three. Ethereum, Bitcoin, we talked about this one. And by the way, something that has me suspicious of a relief rally would be this right here. You can see how Ethereum's value against Bitcoin bottomed with quantitative tightening. This time around, we just had quantitative tightening and it bottomed before. And so part of my thinking is, if we are to have a strong relief rally and not get the same 2021 cycle dump that everyone's expecting, you can see maybe the crypto market is being front run. And if so, that would mean, again, going into May of next year, that if this continues to stay strong, maybe that relief rally turns into something bigger than what people expect. Again, for reference, going back over to Bitcoin, for reference, everyone, it seems, is, let's go to the weekly. Everyone, it seems, is expecting something like this, where Bitcoin fell to the 100, had a relief to the 50, and then just dies. A lot of people are saying that. They're like, what, for your cycle, we fell to the 100, we're going to get a relief rally here, and then it's going to die. And you know what? Maybe they're right. However, in 2019, after quantitative easing was already coming back, we fell to the 100-week moving average, had a relief rally. We only went down because of COVID. So without a black swan type scenario, which I am not going to factor in, I would be expecting the 100 again and then to slowly chop up. And so that would say, you know what, relief rally, but then maybe a double dip here to the 80K area and then up. If I were to draw that out, that would be something like wee, something like that. We'll see. It's fun things to think about. Let's go to our large cap indicator. Let's turn. There's so much going on here. Let's turn that off. And I wanted to take a look under the monthly lens here as well. What's interesting about this, that RSI average. By the way, this large cap chart or indicator here, this is total 3ES, so everything outside of Bitcoin and ETH and stablecoins minus others, everything outside the top 10, so everything Bitcoin Cash on down, divided by Bitcoin. So this is the total valuation of all those top 10 altcoins. And what do we see on this monthly MACD? Does that trend not look positive to you? And we are in this massive 8-year wedge. Now, Solana wasn't like a thing back in 2018, and Doge wasn't as big. So that's why, part of the reason why we're in this massive wedge here. But if all of a sudden this broke up, wouldn't that be interesting as far as timing goes? Others dash Bitcoin, this thing is very bottomed out right now on the RSI. And it is challenging that monthly RSI moving average. So if this is bottomed out, could that sort of be a catalyst for, moving on up like we've done before? And how quick could it move up to? That's another question. You can see 2017, it can bottom out and then shoot on up. 2019, this is when, by the way, let's put this back up here. There we go. Let's get rid of the RSI for a second. Let's add on the quantitative easing chart again. Again, others bottomed right with it. And, I would say, just like Ethereum, Bitcoin, this bottomed just a little bit before. We have the IWM, the Russell 2000 already in all-time high territory. Could we be front running a move such as that? And I'm sure you guys have probably heard a lot of people talking about quantitative easing, the M2 money supply, and as far as the QE argument, is it an argument to be had? Yes, it's a data point, but again, I think people are maybe overstating the importance of it. But we'll see what happens. As far as tether dominance, we have to take this one off log scale. This thing to me looks pretty bullish right now. Not gonna lie. Curious where these points line up. Just as far as trend lines. How far back does this extend, by the way? I was just curious if it did. But as far as those trend lines, is the RSI going to move up here? And by that time, where is stablecoin dominance? I think stablecoins also tell us a lot about what's going on in the crypto market. And if we can hold resistance here at 6.5%, again, you guys are smart. You know that when stablecoin dominance is going down, that's when Bitcoin and everything's going up. Let's take a look at some other charts here. This is the Ethereum ratio network's realized value to the 90-day moving average. And this shows, by the way, as far as alt season, that was right here. Okay. And then the alt season before, that was right here. We are not in that territory yet. However, we are on our way, and curious, right here recently we had kind of a bullish divergence, a higher low in strength, a lower low in price. And so this would be an important chart to watch for altcoin purposes. If this continue to go up further, which I would not be surprised about, could hit those moving averages, that macro golden pocket, the 6.8 to the 6.5, before coming back down. Right now, the overall trend is down. But, watching that moving average on the monthly, be curious how much further down it could go. This is Ethereum on the monthly. It has loved that 50-month moving average, and that value is right around 2,500 if bearishness were to continue. The 100 is there at the 382. Guys, I don't know about you, but I think considering BMNR or Ethereum around the 1700 level should the for your cyclists, the doom and gloomers be right, 1700 ETH is not a value I would want to miss. So I may or may not have some buy orders ready for ETH at that time that I will make sure are ready to deploy. Speaking of BMNR, I've been wondering, should I be talking about this one during the mining stock videos? So yeah, this one has looked like absolute trash for a while. This is the Tom Lee Ethereum chart. And you can see it's right at that. We are low to high here, but it's right at that. Uh, why is this not looking better? There we go. Right at the moving averages and the 382. So, if you believe this could be a local bottom, BMNR could be an area to watch for. But man, I hate charts that look like this. Anytime I see a chart that looks like this, my God, just getting rejected the whole time off the 20 and the 50. Okay, it broke out, it hit the 100, got rejected, wrote it down again. Now it broke out above the 100. Okay, it's at those moving averages. Cool. If the Tom Lee Ethereum, this would be kind of like if you guys know Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy. This would be the Ethereum version that Tom Lee is part of. Do your research, please don't chase. But could this get up to the 200 moving average? My God, could this do? What percent is that? I don't think it would. By the way, that would be crazy. Could this do a 72,000% gain? I don't think so. That would be absolutely nuts. But yeah, something to consider. These charts, by the way, it's just absolutely crazy. The market cap would be right now 12 billion. So I mean, even that wouldn't make sense. Getting up to those, getting up to those levels. I got to run this on my calculator here. Yeah, if it were to get up to 21,000, let's just run with this here. 21,000 divided by what's it at right now? We'll do 30. That's a 700x. All right, a 700 times 12.5 billion. Yeah, that's not going to happen. $8.7 trillion. I do not see BMNR having an $8.7 trillion market cap, even though looking at that is exciting. But yeah, that's crazy town. Let's take a look at some mining stocks. Don't see any other comments below. But guys, if you have any comments, questions, now's the time to ask. I'm just going to run through different mining stocks, different charts, and maybe just close this up here in a little bit. Marathon Digital Holdings still looking like crap. Let's take a look at the R size as well on these. So you know what? Maybe we'll do stochastic instead and go to the monthly. Yeah, this one this one looks like it still has a little bit down to go. Let's go to iron, and something we've been talking about with the mining stocks. If you find any of these guys before they do an AI data center partnership, they really take off. Iron coming down a little bit. This on the monthly. Let's go to the weekly. A little bit of a green buy signal. Yeah, this stochastic has me a little worried, especially this candle here. I am eyeing iron at around 27 and see what happens there. Of course, HUT 8 Corp has been the hot one lately because it partnered with Google as far as Google AI data centers. And I mean, this would be sort of a bearish outlook on the crypto market to say that, these mining stocks are still doing well because they're getting into AI data center stuff, because they're not getting enough profits from mining Bitcoin. I mean, you don't love to hear that, but is that just the bearish news that is coming out now before these guys start to pump a little bit more? But anytime these get tied into some AI data center stuff, they start to take off. And by the way, we've looked at these on Market Watch before, their assets to liabilities or revenue. A lot of these mining stocks are, a good chunk of them actually have they have good profit, good revenue, And so I like their balance sheets. And if they are in dip territory or deep value, I think they're very intriguing. Let's take a look at Cypher. This is one of those mine stocks I really like. And yeah, kind of decision time here. Can it hold its former all time high, the 20-week moving average? The stochastic, it looks like it still has more of a bottoming to go. We'll go over to some altcoins in a little bit too. Clean Spark, yeah, just kind of hanging out there. Maybe this could be a possible low for Clean Spark. Let's take a look at Riot, and then I'll go into some altcoins. I'll take a look at altcoins that you guys have asked about in the past. Yeah, maybe Riot's forming somewhat of a bottom here. I think the stochastic just did a negative cross again, so that would tell me, maybe watch out for that 0.5 somewhere around the $12 area. Let's get into some of my favorite altcoins, shall we? Chainlink. I'm still sort of worried about this head and shoulder pattern. However, the stochastic, I want to see it get up here. But if a head and shoulder were to play out, could you imagine Link coming back down to the $6 area? I love Link. If it's anywhere underneath $8, this 236, any weekly buy signal, I'm not telling you what to do, not financial advice, but I will be dollar cost averaging in Link, especially because it's talked about in the AI circle for altcoins. And if we do get any sort of an alt season, whether it's early next year, whether it's 2 years down the road, I want to be positioned in some of those AI altcoins. I know there's a few of you who like Doge, so we'll take a quick look at Doge, as well as AVAX. And so, yeah, this one, Doge is just looking bad right now. My God. Yeah, that wick on Binance, could Doge come back down to 9 cents? This thing is not looking great, guys. So, do look for those weekly buy signals, the stochastic curling up. But yeah, this one right now is just on its way down. So be patient. Consider what the structure of the market's doing. AVAX, very similar. And being under the 382, by the way, you can always technically put in new lows, and it is challenging the lower area of this channel. So if it continues to challenge that, you know what? I would even be worried about. Let's draw this out. I'd even be worried about, something along this range as well. And you can see that kind of lines up way back here. Could we get a $4 AVAX eventually? Maybe. And remember, these altcoins, some of them, they just die off forever. So, part of my unsolicited advice with any altcoin or meme coin or crypto, if you are in a crypto and it runs, does a 5x, a 10x, do not be afraid to take profits, because those high prices do not last long. Solana, this one I'm very curious about. I want to take a look at XRP as well, because I did a video on it a couple of weeks ago. Solana right at its 200 again. And, this is sort of do or die time for Solana. Not to be dramatic, but yeah, if it loses that, I guess you would have a little bit of hope here at the 0.65 at around 77. But underneath that, man, I'd be worried about it coming all the way back down here. Let's take a look at this can we do the monthly, please? Let's do the monthly for Solana. Yeah, it's at that 50 month moving average. So, yeah, if this doesn't hold, then you can see the stochastic not loving where it's at right now. I'd be worried about Solana going down to like a $30 range. Not to freak anyone out. Did the XRP video not too long ago. Some of you guys liked it. Let's see. Let's do the US dollar one. Right now it's at its 100. All things considered, like XRP is still holding up okay. But yeah, this area around the 786 and the 200 moving average, $1.40, that'd be an area to watch. Let's see. I'm just going to start running through some different ones here. This one's intriguing to me. Is it going to break that ascending channel? If so, I'd be eyeing the 382 is a possible target there at 83 cents. So some good structure here. Hopefully it holds up. I want to take a look at some of the riskier low caps, because when these ones are dying, it tells you the state of the market. But when they're doing well, it tells you when the market is flipping bullish. So this is one of those. I do not buy it, but this is one of those dead project altcoins that like comes to life randomly, and anytime it's breaking those moving averages and the MACD is getting into the positive territory, that's when we're getting frothy and risk on. Yeah, you can see that right back here, breaking the moving average, positive MACD, had that spike there. These things are negative, so it's very risk off right now. But I like looking at some of those 2017 to 2020 altcoins just for that perspective. Jasmy, same thing. This thing's going to continue to die and right down those moving averages. Probably get to these lows again around like a third of a penny. So, yeah, looking pretty ugly for Jasmy, one of our AI altcoins. I'm still kind of waiting for this 17-cent area to see if the market starts to pull a reversal somewhere around there. Anyways, that will do it for today's video. I don't see any comments. That's all right. It's Christmas Eve, but still wanted to be here and chit chat with y'all because had a little bit of time. So if you're watching a replay, let me know what you think in the comments below. Again, I appreciate all of you. I'm thankful for all of you who leave nice comments, who hit the thumbs up, subscribe. Merry Christmas to everyone. Hope you have a fun, safe holidays. Have a happy new year. All that stuff. Get an Uber. Don't drink and drive, please. And I'm hoping that we'll get some, maybe some surprising positive price action into crypto within the first half of the year. Maybe a little bit of a counter trend sort of rally than what people expect. So thank you guys so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Take care.